Hello gentlemen. I start this assembly with something of a confession. For all that I am keen on reading and thoughtfulness and higher things, I must confess that I do quite like some trashy TV. When I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here is on, you'll find me glued to it. And at the moment, my TV trash fix is being supplied by a fantastic show on ITV called The Masked Singer. Now, the final was 2 Saturdays ago in your time, but as I'm recording this assembly in the last week of half term, I still don't know who won it. And if you haven't seen The Masked Singer, well, let me explain. The essence of the show is that a celebrity appears in an outlandish costume and sings. We all try to guess the identity of the celebrity from their disguised voice and from the various clues that they offer. The final 3 celebrities in the final were Badger, Robin and Sausage. Now, my personal favourite of the 3 is probably Badger, but this assembly is inspired by Robin. I'll save the reason why until the end, but suffice it to say that the costume inspired thoughts about language, the words we use, and just how strange the English language is. I feel incredibly lucky that I have English as a first language, because I'm sure that it must be tremendously difficult to learn as a language, because there can be few languages with so many traps and pitfalls to catch out the unwary. Let me give you some examples. We are used to words that shift from a positive meaning to their opposite with the addition of a prefix. So, for example, something can be consistent but shift to its opposite meaning when it is inconsistent. Prefixes like in or dis or un are the usual signals of the shift in meaning. Or you could add the suffix less to make worth into worthless or value into valueless. But there is a trap. What about words that have a negative but no positive? For example, you can be disgruntled but never gruntled. Or you can disrupt, but you can never ever rupt. An idiot can be gormless, but a bright person is never gorm. And inept and inert are criticisms, but no one was ever praised for being ept or ert. Even more infuriating are words which, without changing, mean opposites. Famously, inflammable means both capable of catching fire and incapable of catching fire. It's bizarre, but it's not as unusual as you might think. To sanction something means to impose an official penalty on it, but it also means to give official approval to something. The word left means a person who remains, as in who was left at the end. But it also means to leave, as in who left before the end. And what about off? It can mean when something is deactivated, for example, the alarm was turned off, and of course it can mean the precise opposite, the alarm went off. And there are plenty more like that, short, common words which contain a hidden trap. Words can be deceitful and confusing, but there are even worse examples of the problems that the English language can cause. One of my favourite oddities are fossil words. Now, these are words that have become obsolete and would never normally be used by a modern English speaker. However, they can survive into the modern day as fossils in phrases that we use without thinking. Take the phrase spick and span. I bet that everybody watching this assembly knows what the phrase means. But look again at those words. Of the three, spick and span, only one is in the language. No one asks, have you spicked your room, to hear the answer, yes, it's completely span. Spick and span are fossil words from a previous era. Lots of other phrases preserve fossils. Kith and kin, where kith means everybody you know who is not in your family. Hither and thither hides two more fossils, and hither and yon adds one more. To and fro has an antique shortened version of the word from. And there are surprisingly a large number of those shortened words. Most of us, for example, have probably forgotten that fortnight is a shortened word. In this case, shortened from 14 nights. All of the examples I've given are of unusual words which can catch you out because they contain traps. But what about more normal words? Well, you see, the English language can ambush you in the other way as well, by going for the simple rather than the complicated. Let me ask you this. Which word do you think has the longest definition in the latest edition of the Oxford English Dictionary? Any ideas? I'll tell you. It is the word set. S-E-T. That simple word has 430 different senses or uses. In order to define the three-letter word, the Oxford English Dictionary requires 60,000 words and 326,000 letters. That's the length of a novel to define the word set. How can something so simple be simultaneously so complicated? Well, let's go back to the beginning of the assembly and let's move towards the finish by reminding ourselves of the Masked Singer again and that question that it prompted in me. And the question is this: did the word orange exist in the English language before the arrival of the fruit in the 16th century? So, is the word orange associated with the colour or the fruit originally? Well, let's remind ourselves what Robin from the Masked Singer looks like. Here he is. He clearly lives up to his nickname, Robin Redbreast. And the robin famously got his red chest, and the legend says that he got it from picking a thorn from Jesus's crown of thorns as Jesus made his way towards Calvary. And the blood that issued from the wound fell on the bird and dyed his chest red. So there's no doubt of the association of the word red with the bird robin. The idea of a robin is completely wrapped up with its red breast. And so it's natural for us to think that Batman's sidekick, Robin, himself will wear a red vest. Here he is from the 60s TV show. And even the authoritative Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, or RSPB, gets in on the action. Here's the illustration from their bird book for children. The accompanying text is very clear. The robin is described as, and this is their words, the UK's favourite bird. With its bright red breast, it is familiar throughout the year, and especially at Christmas. But wait a minute. Does a robin actually have a red breast? Here's a picture of a robin. Here's another. If that isn't orange, I don't know what is. And the association of redness is all down to the power of language. Before the fruit arrived in this country, English did not distinguish between the colours red and orange. Both were called red. And because we've already had the idea of robin redbreast, we have ever since ignored the facts that our eyes give us. And we continue to imagine, even actually see, even the Society for the Protection of Birds, in an authoritative bird book for children, they present a colour that just isn't there. We do the same thing elsewhere too. Have you heard the weather rhyme, red sky at night, shepherd's delight? Well, what it means is that a red sunset will probably mean that there'll be good weather the next day. But are sunsets red? Well, we all think so. Here's a sunset. Here's another. Isn't it incredible what words can do? They have the power to confuse, surprise, and baffle. And they can even make us deny the truth of things that are right in front of our noses. The power of the English language should be a source of delight and wonder for us all. However, it is put into the shade by one associating extraordinary thing, the act of speaking itself, vocalization. And in my next assembly, I'll have a few words to say about that.